Hello, welcome to the Sideboard here at the StarCityGames.com Standard Open in Atlanta. I'm Nick Miller alongside man of many hats, Aaron Barich. How you doing?
Doing great.
You came up to me this morning before the event started and said, should I play the boring deck or should I play the sweet deck? And I told you, we always want the sweet deck.
Yeah, I brought something. I don't even really know what to make of it. I've been playing it and I don't know what to make of it, but it's a blast.
All right, we've got Elves. In a past life, we would call this deck Eldrazi because you have Eldrazi Displacer as well as some more Eldrazi in the sideboard. But you got this kind of combo-y beatdown plan of this Elf deck that we haven't really seen before.
Yeah, this Elf deck, my best way to kind of describe it is it's almost an offshoot of Cryptolith decks, and that your game plan is very similar in that you want to flood the board, use your mana to kind of bully your opponents around, and just like the Cryptolith deck, you kind of do have this combo finish as your backup plan just to kill them.
Right. Except for yours requires a 5-mana 2/1 if you're going down the beatdown plan, which any deck with Tajuru Warcaller, 4 of in the main, I think we got stapled in as the deck tech material.
You are making fun of the noble Tajuru Warcaller. He does his job very well. Look, so in standard right now, we are definitely lacking in a good overrun effect. We haven't had an overrun in a long time, and I was kind of messing around with this. I was really looking for one, and Tajuru Warcaller ended up being just the best possible option, being both an elf that you can get off your Sylvan Messengers, and being a potent enough pump spell that kill your opponent. And let me tell you, no one plays around Tajuru Warcaller, ever. Doesn't happen.
I wouldn't expect it. There's going to be a lot of cards to look up in this deck tech, so if you haven't caught on, Sylvan Messenger, this is the new Magic Origins elf that sort of works like Goblin Ringleader, lets you find a couple elves off the top of your deck, put them in your hand, and thus, Warcaller, tutorable, overrun effect.
Right. Sylvan Messenger is kind of one of the big reasons to play this deck. When he was in standard back in the day with Goblin Ringleader had all the spotlight. But now we don't have our Ringleader, and we have Messenger with a whole bunch of really solid elves. This deck plays 30 elves, so half your deck is elves. Mm-hmm. So you're averaging getting about 2 cards each time you cast it. And 4 mana for a 2/2 Trampler plus draw 2 creatures is a pretty great rate. Especially when you have so many mana dorks in your deck and you're casting it on turn 3, and you're able to abuse all your mana by refilling your hand consistently. And there's no feeling quite like casting Messenger and revealing another one, and your opponent just looks at you and they're very sad.
Right. You mentioned the deck functions similarly to the Cryptolith deck, except for you don't really have that engine. You just have a bunch of creatures that can tap for mana.
Right.
So you've got the Gnarlroot Trapper alongside Lumdrad in itself, and then the Beastcaller Savant, all available to tap for mana.
Sure. One of my least favorite things about the Cryptolith deck is Cryptolith. When I first read that card, a bunch of people tried to tell me it was really good, and I just didn't listen. I hate 2-mana cards. I hate cards that just only thing they do is tap for mana. I feel like that's kind of just the opposite of what I want to be doing. And I played the deck once, and I drew 2 Cryptolith and I felt awful.
Right.
I just never wanted to touch the card again. This deck is very similar to the Cryptolith deck in its ability to make mana, except this deck has even higher explosive potential because you have 8 1-mana creatures that tap for mana. We don't have Elvish Mystic in Standard anymore because the card was too good.
Right.
So this deck gets to play an Elvish Mystic in the form of Gnarlroot Trapper, which not only being a mana dork, also can help break your guys through combat by giving them Death Touch, which is pretty important in a lot of the games where you kind of take a while to draw a payoff card. You can get in some chip shots with Elvish Visionaries and like Nissa, and get your opponent low enough to where when you actually do cast your Shaman of the Pact, it kills them.
Right. Now's the big finish. We talked about the beatdown plan via the Warcaller and just a bunch of little elves. The real draw of this deck, Shaman of the Pact, Eldrazi Displacer, coming together, just a machine gun to take them out.
Yeah, when you're able to collect a company into your opponent's instep and just put them both into play, untap and activate it twice, usually your opponent takes 18 and dies. It's super fun. I've had many, many sad opponents when I've gotten to do that, because they feel like they're safe. They're at 18, I have like 4 guys in play, and then they're dead.
Yeah. What could possibly happen?
Right.
Well, you could just take 1 billion damage off 2 cards.
Yeah, easy. 1 card, really. Collected Company. I had 1 card in my hand. They couldn't. But
this deck has all of the hits going for it. You have the Displacer shenanigans, you've got the Coco shenanigans, and then you just have like a beatdown plan as well.
Right, and there's so many moving parts to this deck. They all work together so well. Eldrazi Displacer being a good blink effect. You can blink your Sylvan Messenger to get multiple cards. Your Visionaries draw cards. Blink your Dwinnins Elite to get tokens. Blink out your Tajuru Warcaller if the first trigger didn't kill them. You can use Beastcaller Savant, who is conveniently an ally to re-trigger your Tajuru Warcaller, and he has haste, so he'll get his +2 and be able to attack as well.
Has all the keywords you want in this deck.
Yeah, it's perfect.
All the
Does
check boxes.
everything.
Not to mention Nissa running around here in Elf too.
Yeah.
Might as well find a Planeswalker off your 2/2.
Yeah, it's great. Sylvan Messenger is insane. Nissa does a lot for this deck. It lets you help keep your land count up as well as keep your elf count up for Sylvan Messenger. Because your deck definitely needs to be casting creatures every single turn. Because your cards aren't very powerful on their own. So if your opponent is able to get ahead and you don't have something going on, you're going to be dying.
Right.
So Nissa just fills this ultimate role of, just like in a lot of other decks, it gives you a late game as well as making sure you hit your land drops. This deck's really land light. It plays 20 lands, 2 of which are Westvale Abbeys. So your mana can be kind of rough sometimes. This deck is definitely a little inconsistent. I've definitely had a lot of games where I just don't hit any of my payoff cards and I'm beating them down with Dwynen's Elites and Gnawroot Trappers. And
doing it the hard way.
it's really hard, especially when your opponent plays like, a Knight of the White Orchid. Had that happen before. 2/2 First Striker is unbeatable.
Yeah, even your Trapper's not getting them
Not
through that.
doing anything.
All right, so what are the matchups where you're kind of going the beatdown plan, and what matchups are you relying on the combo finish?
So the beatdown plan really seems to be your main plan against the more controlling decks, because you're never going to have enough guys in play to have your Shaman of the Pack Machine Gun actually be a viable plan. You're going to have maybe 2 or 3 elves in play at most, especially now that a lot of the black decks are playing upwards of 4 languishes in their main.
Yeah.
So against those decks, your best hands are hands where you go like turn 1 Gnawroot Trapper, turn 2 you play Beastcaller Savant, tap it in your Gnawroot Trapper, cast Dwynen's Elite, have 4 guys in play on turn 2, and then turn 3 you Shaman them for 5 and attack for 5.
All right.
And even the black-white decks can't keep up with taking 10 on turn 3.
All right, you're an aggressive player at heart, so even you can find a way to make a bunch of 1/1s all of a sudden a beatdown plan.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
All right, let's move on to the sideboard. We've hit all the key players here in the main deck. You can basically transform into an Eldrazi deck with a package of Reality Smasher, Thought-Knot Seer, and another Eldrazi Displacer here in the side.
Right. Speaking of Languish, that card is really good against me. Every creature in my deck dies to it, in fact.
Let me guess, the Warcaller coming out in those matchups?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Really bad when you can only have 2 guys in play. Then he actually is just a 5-mana 2/1, and that's not what you want to be casting. However, Reality Smasher is very, very good against those decks. A lot of people don't see it coming. They're so used to seeing it out of like the Cryptolith right sideboard, but they don't seem to make the connection that I might have it.
Yeah.
And everyone I've played against so far has been caught off guard. Kind of my sideboard plan against those matchups is cut my Warcallers and awkwardly cut Sylvan Messenger. The card's very good, but I'm cutting a lot of my elves to board in these Eldrazi anyway, so the chance of Messenger giving me 2 cards decreases dramatically.
Right. I imagine Coco comes out as well because you're losing a lot of targets.
It can. It kind of depends on how I feel like my opponent's playing. If I feel like they're trying to play around that type of effect, then I'll board some extras out. But I also like having that effect post-languish. If I'm on the play and they languish on 4, I like being able to Coco as my response and get a couple guys into play. Because I'm not really cutting my small guys, I'm cutting my 4 and 5 drops from more 4 and 5 drops.
All right. Then sideboard, you got some discard spells, you got some spatial contortions here, another Coco, an Evo Leap. We saw this in Modern with the Elves decks that allow you to kind of chain things together.
Yeah, it's very similar. This card is very, very good against all the control decks, black-white especially, but because they actually tend to decrease their threat count against me. Things like Gideon aren't all that great, so I've seen people board those out, and they just try and play this hard control game. And once you resolve an Evo Leap against that plan, they're trying to 1-for-1 all your guys, and you just have so many cards it doesn't matter. The Duresses, I thought about it being 4 Thought-Knot Seers, but I really felt Duress was so good on curve. Games where you can go Loam Dryad on 1, 2-drop, any of my 2-drops on 2 and cast the Duress into a 4-drop or into another 3-drop. I felt being able to have that type of tempo play was so important. And Spatial Contortion's biggest job is killing Eldrazi Displacers.
All right.
Because as good as I think Eldrazi Displacer Shaman of the Pact is, if your opponent gets Eldrazi Displacer Reflector Mage going before you're online, you just don't have a field, so you have to be able to kill it.
Yeah, I was going to ask why Spatial Contortion. Your deck has black mana in it, so I imagine you had some access to other removal spells. You're going for the 4/4 here.
Right. I was on Ultimate Price for a long time. And despite Eldrazi Displacer costing white mana, it is not a white card. It is in fact colorless and does not die at Ultimate Price. I've played a whole bunch of things in this slot. I tried to cast Grasp of Darkness, but just was impossible on the mana. Don't play enough black sources. So it just came down to that being the most convenient 2-mana kill spell for Displacer.
So you're 5 rounds in the event, you're 3-2. Anything you want to change going forward? Anything you want to look at that you kind of didn't get in here at the last minute?
I'm not sure if the 4th Displacer should be in main over a Tajuru Warcaller. Displacer's a little hard to cast in the deck. My only white lands are the 4 Caves of Coelios, but I do get to cast them off Loam Dryad and Beastcaller Savant. So I have a virtual 12 sources, plus company putting them in. So I was a little worried about that. But games where you draw multiple Tajuru Warcallers is pretty awkward.
Sure.
There are those strange corner case games where you cast 2 of them and you get +4/+4 to your team. And that'll kill your opponent usually.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm a huge fan of everything. I love my sideboard. I like being able to board into the other company and the other Displacer against the other, against the Crypt with Right decks. You board into a combo deck, a better combo deck and less aggressive deck. So yeah, the deck's a lot of fun. It definitely is a whole blast to play. I haven't had an unfun game yet. My matches have all been super close that I've lost, and the ones I have won have been steamrolls. They just die. So,
well, the deck looks like a ton of fun, as you said. It looks to have some legs. You got some oddball cards going around in here, but the theory behind the deck looks very solid. Shaman of the Pack, Eldrazi Displacer, it's just a very good combination of cards. So,
yeah, it's a powerhouse. I have a feeling that something like this, I bet someone can build something better than me for this type of shell, but I do think that combo of cards is potentially a tier 1 kind of thing in Standard.
All right, well, the message is out there. Everyone on the internet, get to work, figure out how to make the deck, enjoy it, have some fun. Aaron, thanks for joining me here in the sideboard. Stay tuned to StarCityGames.com all weekend long for the action here in Atlanta.